Well, hello there, and welcome back to the 2024 Men's Final Four from Glendale, Arizona, as we are ready for the two national semifinal games between the NC State Wolfpack and the Purdue Boilermakers, and then the defending champ, UConn. Can they go back-to-back? They take on Alabama in game number 2 coming up tonight. I am the somewhat competent host, TJ Rives. He is my wingman, Ari Russell. And we are hanging out here just hours before the Final Four games are to get underway. However, you have found this show, if you're watching us live on the College Basketball Coast to Coast platforms, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, thank you. We are also streaming live on the TuneIn College Basketball Coast to Coast channel. Unique name, right? College Basketball Coast to Coast. That's how you find us. That's how you find all the content. We're amped up. We're ready to go. Again, it's a few hours before everything gets underway. Ari Russell, great to see you in the Arizona desert. We are reunited, and it feels so good on a Final Four Saturday, my friend.
Here we go again, man. We were here, 7 years ago, was it? I think that was the last time it's been in Glendale. Luckily, they put us much closer to the venue than last time, where I feel like we might as well have been in Mexico City because it felt like it took that long to get to the stadium from the hotel. Now it's much closer. So that's good for us, lazy media people. So
of course.
we could just walk across the street now to the venue, to the game, which is much better, I think.
And what we can tell you is there are a ton of people that have already descended here on State Farm Stadium in Glendale. We're about 30 minutes to the west of downtown Phoenix, but whether we're talking about UConn fans going for the repeat, whether we're talking about Alabama fans here for the first time, or Purdue and NC State fans that haven't been here in a long time, since the early 80s, they have all made their way here to Arizona to see whatever's going to happen on this Final Four Saturday.
Yeah, we ran into down the hallway in the hotel a couple of fans who you were like, roll tide. They're excited. Look, they're used to being at football national championships.
That's right.
Here in this stadium, or
correct,
whatever stadium it is, because Alabama's obviously in the college football playoff, or BCS before that every year. Basketball, first time for them. This is great for their fans. They even said that those two women that we spoke to, they were just happy to be here.
Sure.
Because it's a great environment for the fans. I've always kind of been critical of the venues. I just don't think this is a great place to watch basketball game, but it's not about that. It's the atmosphere. It's the elements that's there. It's huge. You got 4 fan bases that are going to be rabid. I mean, there's going to be a lot of Alabama fans. That they're excited because this is the first time. And like you said, NC State, first time that they've been to this since 1983, and Purdue, it's been even longer.
1980.
Yes.
And Alabama never. So
Right.
UConn, this is old hat. They did it last year. They've done it over and over again. So some would believe that's advantage UConn. But again, tens of thousands will descend in and around here. Not all of them have tickets. We've been in and around Glendale now for about 36 hours or so. This is going to be some scene here in a little while, in a few hours, when they start to let everybody in. NC State, Purdue up first, Alabama and UConn up next. But it never disappoints on amount of people, atmosphere. What an event.
Oh yeah, it's intense. It's really probably one of the best sports events. I think the NCAA tournament in general, to me, I'm partial because it's something that I've been covering for a long time, and I've always been a college basketball fanatic for my entire life. It's really the culmination of a great event in general. The NCAA tournament, from that first Thursday and Friday. Now I'm getting more into even the play-in games. The first 4 games are getting exciting now for me because I'm like, oh, now it gets to see games on Tuesday and Wednesday before Thursday and Friday. And now we're here at the Final Four. This is what it's all about. Great event. Today is such a great day. It's always fun, exciting. You don't know what's going to happen. You really, all bets are off at this point. Each team has won their regional championship to get here. Tough roads, great storylines across the board, of which I'm sure we'll get to and speak a lot about.
You said the politically correct thing. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Well, a lot of people believe this is a coronation of Connecticut, the defending champs. You were around them in the opening weekend of the first 2 games in Brooklyn, New York. Right. Point blank, do you believe this is a UConn invitational? This is a coronation, that they're going to do whatever they do to get against Alabama, and it doesn't matter if it's NC State or Purdue. This is UConn going back to back? Do you believe that
Yeah.
that's unfair to the other teams that are
I
here?
mean, it's not unfair because that's what it is. UConn has just until I see some team being able to at this in this atmosphere in this type of setup where it's a one and done situation. Until I see anybody beat a UConn led um, Danny Hurley team, we haven't seen it yet. They've been pretty invincible in elimination games. Obviously, they won the Big East tournament going away. The closest game they've had in the last month or so has been against St. John's. I think that's the only game that they've had since the Big East tournament began that was under 10-point win. Everything else has been more than double digits. It's just significant how much they have accomplished so far. I still think you still got to play the game, but I just don't see the matchup. I just don't see anybody really being able to figure them out. You seem to be able to do a good job against them in the first half. We saw that with Illinois. Really look close, and it just seems like they get that feel. I saw that even with the Xavier. That was a close game at half. Even in the championship game at the Big East was a close game at the half, and then they just blow the doors open. I just feel like they get a feel for what they can do and exploit, figure that out in the second half. They explode, and once they get that spurt, once they get that double digit lead, it's curtains, man. Like they step on your throat. I've never seen a team really take advantage of a large lead and create a deficit for their opponents and really spread it out than UConn. I haven't seen that in my lifetime of watching the tournament, a team that dominant being able to really take advantage of that momentum, and they just really blow the doors open.
Well, and you were mentioning all of that, and that includes the Illinois game just a week
that's-
ago today, where that was a close game late in
Yeah.
the first half, like 23 all, 25 all, whatever it was. And then 30 consecutive points, almost unheard of, at the end of the first half, start of the second half, a 30-0 run. And that game was over with. Again, as they interplay later tonight, UConn has done something no other team has ever done in the NCAA tournament. That's win 10 consecutive tournament games by 13 or more points. Amazing. When you look at all of the repeat champion Florida Gators didn't do that. The repeat champion Duke Blue Devils of the early 90s didn't do it. All of the great John Wooden teams that won 7 titles in 10 years. Now, granted, there weren't 5 or 6 tournament games every year, but out of all those tournament titles, they never had a 10-game win streak winning by that many points. It's remarkable what UConn has done, but I'm going on the record. They're not invincible. That's what this is all about. You and I were joking at breakfast walking around this morning. UNLV looked to be invincible back in 1991. Larry Johnson, Greg Anthony, Stacey Augmon, Anderson Hunt. And what happened to them on semifinal Saturday against Duke?
Yep. Yeah.
Duke got them. Even
yeah.
with the long win streak, the defending champs, Duke got them.
Yeah, but there's a little bit of a difference in that one. You have to realize that Duke, the previous year got blown out by 30, and Mike DeCourcy actually wrote a great article. I was talking to you about this earlier, and he wrote it this week about UConn and how unique this possible repeat experience can be for them. And he did talk to, or the Sporting News in general talked to Greg Anthony about this, and a part of that great UNLV team.
Yep.
Some say that first year was one of the best teams maybe of all time in college. Hard to argue against that, but because they whooped opponents pretty good, they won that game by 30. And he said that they weren't really a team that is going to lose by 30 again. And he's like they got blown out in the first year against UNLV. That wasn't going to happen the second team. They were a year older. They got back together again. A lot of experience. They were hungry. They were angry. They were motivated, and it was a 2-point win they had against UNLV. It could have gone either way to keep them from possibly repeating. Obviously, Duke would win that first leg of their back-to-back because they would win the next year. This is a very difficult accomplishment to do. There's a lot of things that you have to do that. The thing about this UConn team, and this was mentioned in that article that DeCourcy wrote, was that they had such a tremendous turnaround from a percentage of their rotational players from a year ago that didn't happen the last couple of times. We haven't seen that, with 2008, 2006, 2007 with Florida, the same roster pretty much. They may have added Markeith Spaeth off the bench for that second one, but it was still the same starting five. Same thing with Duke, in the early 90s. It was the same starting five for the most part. They just got better because they had another year around. This is a whole new different team. You've got, I think, two starters. I think it's Newton that started, and Caravan who started. Klingon is a key player, was a key player off the bench. You still have three new players.
It's amazing how good
transfers too.
As you're saying, it's amazing how good they were last year. That Klingon wasn't a starter on the national title team.
So and now they've got guys off the bench that are great as well. The sixth man of the year they have on their roster. It's just. They are just a team that it just looks like it's an amazing run because of it's a different roster from a year ago. They look even better and more dominant than they were a year ago. It's just the way that they play, their style on both ends. They have Stephon Castle, who in my opinion is a top 5 pick, should be drafted in the top 5. He's already an elite defender. We saw what he did with Shannon in that game, pretty much man-to-man, shutting him down. He's going to be on your team's best player. He's a lockdown glove. He'll know the chewing gum you have within the first 5 seconds of it. Norman Dale.
Exactly. Hoosiers. How appropriate.
So it's a fun team to watch. You could tell these kids love to play. These kids, they're adults, obviously, but these young men love to play for Danny Hurley, and you could see that's a mutual respect because you could tell he really likes to coach these guys, and you see it and you feel in the locker room. It's just a very professional aspect of it. They're not going to be somebody that's going to be worried about the moment and looking ahead. Really, that's not how they operate. And that's part of the key to their success. And it's just the mentality that they have, but it's also execution. I mean, their offense, it's one of those things that you haven't seen that before, what they do and how they run it. And I think that's the challenge, is that they find ways to exploit it. The only way to beat UConn is to have a mid-range game. No one's been able to do it because no one has mid-range games. You know who has a good mid-range game? UConn.
Right.
So it's like they have the actual recipes to beat themselves, and no one's been able to do it. So Alabama, in order to win, they're going to have to hit mid-range shots.
Well, but they don't take a lot of them. They want it at the rim, or they want 3-pointers. The 3-point line, as we joked with Mark Wise earlier in the week, our colleague who's always with us on the Final Four, he may see this at some point. Do we both want to salute? We salute to Mark Wise, who's been with us for so many of these Final Fours, but not with us here in Arizona. He was here 7 years ago when North Carolina won it all at State Farm Stadium. But he has said this week the 3 biggest keys for Alabama are the 3-point line, the 3-point line, and the 3-point line. I mean, they're going to have to make 10, probably 12, and maybe 13 or 14 to have a chance to win this game. That's their equalizer. That's what they will have to do. So we've spent a lot of time talking about UConn. Again, TJ Rives with you. Ari Russell here with me. We are in Glendale, Arizona. The national semifinals are coming up. NC State and Purdue will be up first just after 6 Eastern, just after 3 p.m. Pacific time in the desert. And then right around 9 Eastern time, give or take, is UConn going for history, looking to become the first team since the 06-07 Florida Gators. We were there. We were around each other for the national championship back-to-back for Florida. No team since that Gator team has come to the Final Four as the defending champions. UConn's done that. They'll play Alabama in the late game again around 9 Eastern time tonight inside the Arizona Cardinals State Farm Stadium. Let me set the table a little further. Here in a couple of minutes, you're going to hear from another one of our colleagues. We got a cast of many that are going to be with us throughout the weekend on College Basketball Coast to Coast, on the live platform, on the TuneIn channel, podcast form. Matt Zimick, great historian of the college game, former national college football writer for many years with a couple of different outlets, now writes for the USA Today Trojans Wire website, USC's website. He's had a busy week with all the leaving of Andy Enfield, the hiring of Eric Musselman as the coach. USC headed to the Big Ten in all athletics. So Matt's got
T-shirts, by the way, are optional.
Yes, and Matt has great historical perspective on NC State. We're going to talk about NC State with Matt here in a little bit, the symmetry and maybe some differences of their 1983 tremendous run with the late Jim Valvano, where they upset seemingly invincible Houston, Phi Slamma Jamma. NC State won the semifinal game with Georgia and then beat Houston in the championship game, one state over from where we are in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That happened.
Who was on that Georgia team, by the way?
That's Vern Fleming. It was not Dominique Wilkins. He had left the year before. But in any event, NC State won the Saturday semifinal, beat Houston in the title game. So Matt's going to have great insight into how does that team relate to Kevin Keats' present-day team with DJ Burns. He's been the hot name, the big guy, 6'7", probably north of 300 pounds, listed a little under. DJ Burns has been a great story. DJ Horn, another veteran guard, another transfer, has shot it well. What a story these guys are. So Matt and I will be talking about that in a few minutes here on College Basketball Coast to Coast. Also, my Tampa wingman, my Tampa brother from another mother, Jason Powers, will pop in here in a little bit. I want his feelings and predictions on these two games. He's been with me, Ari, as you have, but he's been with me throughout the duration of March, especially Saturday nights live. We were doing live shows as well after the games in the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight each night. But Jason,
he's looking to break the Cal Ripken record, basically.
Yeah, Jason has been tremendous with the insight and the analysis. I want his breakdown of NC State, Purdue, and also Alabama out of the SEC. Not just a football school, trying to go for it here in the Final Four against UConn. And we haven't talked about Purdue. I think about half of Indiana, half of northern Indiana, West Lafayette, et cetera, has made their way to the desert. I'm very curious. What's your thought on, are they going to have 5,000 people here? Are they going to have 10? Are they maybe going to have 15 or 20? I know from our colleague Vince Ferrara, who may very well be watching us in Knoxville, Vince with the sports animal, the sports radio station as the morning host, he was in Detroit for Purdue and Tennessee regional final. And he said, you cannot believe the atmosphere, the Purdue fans. He said the whole arena stood for like the last half of the game. So what will it be like? Will they have 10,000 here? Will they have 15,000 here to make some noise in game number one? Speculate. What do you think?
I think it'll be closer to 15,000. I think, all the Purdue fans, and look, Purdue is known as producing probably the most astronauts per capita in NASA. Well, we are playing in something that does kind of look like,
it does look like a UFO.
Yeah. So, I think that's an appeal maybe, but, I think they're going to be pretty heavy on my flight down here from when my layover from Denver. I mean, it was probably like 80% Purdue fans.
I easily came in the day before with 20 or 25 Purdue fans just on my flight.
Yeah.
All over the place in the airport, all over in the hotels around here.
I think they're going to be pretty deep, man.
We'll see. Maybe not everybody has a ticket, but there are a lot of them that want to be around this and maybe go for a ticket if they can get there for Monday night hanging out here. Again, it's not been since March of 1980 that Purdue has been here. Zach Edey, humongous player, humongous story, probably the biggest key for Purdue.
Well, I mean,
figuratively and literally.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. He's been their guy for the last 2 years, National Player of the Year. Yeah, I don't know if he won it again this year. He was definitely a finalist up there. I mean, he had a tremendous Elite Eight game, historic Elite Eight game. Obviously, he is the key. He's the key, been the key for the team the last couple of years. He ain't the only guy. But, I mean, obviously, he's the key. He's the guy that gets everyone in foul trouble. I mean, I think he led. I was listening to what I think it was the Elite Eight. No, it was the Sweet 16 game. And they were talking about how he leads the entire NCAA in drawn fouls and foul shot attempts.
Correct.
Because he just, he's a huge guy. He's not like he's thin and narrow. He's a big guy. He's over 300 pounds, I think. So he's not slight. And if you noticed him and been paying attention to him since freshman year, he's gotten a heck of a lot better. His footwork has gotten impressive. I mean, conditioning, and not only that, he has a super high basketball IQ. I mean, and he's a great passer in the post. I mean, he does a lot of little things on top of the scoring. He's a big body. He's a big presence. Obviously, he is the key. I mean, he's a giant, and it's one of those things. Foul troubles, that's going to be the key in this one. If he gets in early foul trouble, I mean, we've seen it before. We saw with Greg Oden back before, when he gets in foul trouble, it really makes a lot of problems in the past and takes away the dominance. Is that going to be something that DJ Bird's going to get in foul trouble? That's
a big key.
Difference. Yes,
very true.
So he will be the key because of that. That's the main thing. He draws so many fouls and everything like that.
That's so many free throws.
Yes, yeah. He's a great free throw shooter.
Again, 40-point game for him in the regional final. He was tremendous as they got the win over Tennessee and got here to Purdue. All right, the team they are playing as we rock along live here on semifinal Saturday from the Final Four is NC State. And so when I had the opportunity to be around our colleague Matt Zimick, he's a resident here in Phoenix. And again, he is a phenomenal resource when it comes to these things. I wanted to get the chance to talk to him, and he said, we got to talk NC State and the symmetry and maybe some of the differences, 1983 to 2024. It's been 41 years since NC State has been in the Final Four. So here now, Matt Zimick and I talking more about the improbable run of the Wolfpack as we get some more on this conversation, some more insight on comparisons then and now. All right, Matt Zimick. So we are here inside a beautiful State Farm Stadium, and we want to talk a little bit about the NC State Wolfpack. How appropriate as we look back here and look down, we're right by the NC State logo, you and I, inside of State Farm Stadium. All right, so give me a thought on the synergy on bookends, 1983 and now 2024 with the Wolfpack back in the Final Four.
It really is remarkable. I mean, this is the first time since 1983 that North Carolina State has made the Final Four. And you look at the parallels, it was improbable in 83. In many ways, it feels more improbable 41 years later. And who thought, TJ, you could ever say that? Because 1983 is one of the ultimate Cinderella stories in college basketball history. But really, when you think about it, this is more improbable. Let's go back to the first day of the ACC tournament. North Carolina State tied with a bottom-rung, basement-dwelling Louisville team, 75-75, getting into crunch time after the final media timeout. NC State could have lost to Kenny Payne and that sinking ship at Louisville. And, of course, back in Jim Valvano's time, in the early 80s, you did not have a 5-day, 5-round ACC tournament. It was more condensed. You didn't have to play as many games. So this NC State team gets past the Louisville game and has to win 4 more ACC tournament games just to get the automatic bid, just to get the number 11 seed. Jim Valvano in 1983, that was a number 6 seed. NC State was wearing home whites in the first round, was wearing home whites in the Sweet 16 against Utah. The game that, full disclosure, I forgot that NC State was playing Utah. I remember that NC State was wearing home whites as the higher seed.
You kill me, though, because most of us don't remember what we had for breakfast yesterday. And you're killing yourself over not remembering who was NC State's Sweet 16 opponent 41 years ago.
I do remember it was in Ogden at Weber State University that played the regional semifinal and then the final that year. But, you know, that NC State team was a 6. This NC State team, 41 years later, Kevin Keats, was an 11 seed. You really put it all together. This NC State team winning, TJ, 9 straight single elimination tournament games after cratering at the end of the regular season, losing 4 in a row. This is more improbable than what we saw in 83 with Valvano. And 83 with Valvano is one of the all-time underdog stories in the history of sports, let alone college basketball.
And I've heard several people say this in various forms or fashions. Don't mess with the streak. Don't get in the way of the streak. Don't get on the train tracks with the freight train. So when you bring it to this game with Purdue, you know, Purdue again has not been in a Final Four since 1980. I mean, we're going back to the Ronald Reagan administration. Reagan hadn't been elected in Purdue.
Yes.
March of 1980 was last in this event. But you really wonder here if NC State plays loosey-goosey and continue to play with fire and Purdue plays tight in this game. Do you have a thought on that?
Well, so, you know, in 1983, just to, you know, draw now, we've been doing a lot of comparing, TJ. Now we get to the contrast. In 83, NC State was playing Georgia, a relatively obscure number 4 seed. You know, the NC State and Georgia were viewed as being pretty much on the same level. No one was surprised when NC State won that game in Albuquerque. But this year, 41 years later, NC State's playing a giant. It's as though NC State is playing Houston, but not in the title game. It's in the semis. And here's where we can connect with 1983. If it's tight late in the game, what's NC State going to do? It's going to foul the opposing team, just as it did with Phi Slamma Jamma.
That's right.
It's going to be hack and Edey. You're going to make Zach Edey shoot free throws. You're going to force him to make 2 free throws in this big football stadium with 70,000 people on the sidelines in the background. NC State's going to do hack and Edey if it's close. And so really, in many ways, that's the scene setter for this game. Can NC State take a 40-minute game and reduce it to 5 or 4 minutes in crunch time? And then we could see the foul shots as we saw it with Houston 41 years ago in Albuquerque.
And unfortunately, we've lost Lorenzo Charles, but that moment is still iconic. Wittenberg, who still says it's a pass, Derek Wittenberg. I don't know that we're going to get anything like that on Saturday afternoon, but you've given us great nostalgia. Let's see what happens with NC State and Purdue. Thank you, Matt Civic.
Thank you, TJ.
All right, so that was yesterday. Did you notice the Where's Waldo, not just Ari, but the audience there in the background as that went on? Kelvin Sampson was being recognized as the AP Coach of the Year. He walked right behind us in a Where's Waldo moment there with his wife yesterday inside the open to the public practices and with what was going on. Great insight from Matt. He'll have more in a few moments. Again, if you're just joining us, we're live on the College Basketball Coast to Coast platforms on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, as well as the TuneIn live channel, College Basketball Coast to Coast. We should make mention when this game is over tonight, we will have a recap show, probably about a 20-minute recap show that will be up on the TuneIn channel, probably 20, 30 minutes after game number 2 is over. Get a complete insightful analysis of the 2 semifinal games. Ari will be with me, Tyler Jones, who's here in Arizona, Matt Zimick, who you just saw, as well as Deshaun Tate, TC Martin. I don't know how I'm going to fit everybody in, but we'll get some opinions on like what we saw.
Like a Dean Martin roast.
Probably something along those lines. So we're going to have a blast talking about these games tonight. It'll be on the TuneIn channel. It'll be in podcast form. We'll be back tomorrow, by the way, 3 Eastern time on the Sunday in between. We'll know the final 4 participants, the 2 championship participants for Monday night. 3 Eastern time, noon Pacific as well on Monday with a national title preview as well on game day right here on this channel. And while we have a moment, again, you still got an opportunity to get in. I don't know who all's watching us in the desert, but there could be some people here in Glendale trying to get their tickets. The game's coming up in a couple of hours as we do this live. Maybe you have friends, acquaintances, relatives that are trying to get in. Put them on to TicketSmarter, the TicketSmarter mobile app. They've got the best prices on the secondary market. Your purchase is safe and secure. Utilize their service and our promo code COAST20. That's going to save you $20 off your order. Use it as much as you want. COAST20 for the Final Four for the national title game. Again, if you've got friends, acquaintances from Alabama, North Carolina, Connecticut, Purdue that have come here and they're trying to get tickets to the game, put them on to TicketSmarter for the most competitive prices on the secondary market. Get in the game. Think smarter. TicketSmarter, our promo code right there on the screen. If you're not seeing it, you're hearing it on TuneIn or in podcast form, etc. It's COAST20. COAST20 saves you $20 with TicketSmarter and the TicketSmarter mobile app. All right, you and I have done a lot of talking so far. I love the insight and the analysis of this next guy that's going to now pop on with me back in Tampa Bay, where I am based in West Central Florida. We've got guys coming in from all over. Tyler Jones coming from Dallas. Deshaun Tate coming from Atlanta. You're coming from the New York area. Let's go back to Tampa Bay, my wingman Jason Powers, and bring him aboard on College Basketball Coast to Coast. Right now here with us on a Final Four Saturday. I miss having you out here in person, but this is the next best thing to get you on board to make some comments about the game. I'm not sure if Ari's making sure that I behave or I make sure that he behaves. I'm not sure how that works. How are you on this Final Four Saturday? Purdue, NC State, UConn, Alabama coming up, Mr. Powers.
Boys, you look like you're having a lot of fun out there. Nice hotel room, it looks like. A little aqua in the background.
Yes. Undisclosed hotel location.
Undisclosed location, but right. Yes, soothing colors there on the background with the whole bit. Kind of a low-key situation. All right, so to you, let's start with the first game, NC State and Purdue. We have talked a bunch, you and I, but not a ton in the preview mode. Here it is. It's game day. What do you think this comes down to? What do you think happens in game number 1?
I think it's going to be, can NC State keep DJ Burns on the court? Because I think he needs to be on the court more, as much to facilitate as it is to score, because I think he's going to have a tough time scoring today against Edey. But again, his ability to facilitate out of the post, he's kind of their point forward. And I'll be very interested to see what the strategy is with NC State. Do they play Edey man-to-man and let him score 35 to 40? Or at some point, do they double team and make him kick the ball out to Lawyer and Braden Smith and those guys to shoot threes? Because one thing we know, Purdue's one of the most efficient offensive teams in the country, whether it's from the 2 or the 3-point line. And one thing they didn't do well last week against Tennessee was shoot the 3. If they can shoot the 3 well today, I think they're going to be in great shape.
All right, interesting on that. In terms of NC State and the streak, we kept talking about this after the dramatic win over Oakland in the second-round game. They could have been gone that night, Ari, Jason, and for the audience. Oakland had the ball with the game tied in the final seconds, never got a shot off. Yeah, the controversy of whether the NC State defender Diarra touched the ball with the pinky or not. The refs ruled it's out of bounds. It's off Oakland. They never got a shot off. We went to overtime. NC State won the game. They've lived on the edge, Jason, over and over again. But what about the mentality of don't get in front of the streak? This team is streaking, and it hasn't mattered since Washington, D.C., where they've played. They've picked up where they left off, including in Dallas last weekend.
No doubt. I think there's absolutely some validity to that. And I think if you look on the other side, Purdue's got as much getting weight off their shoulders as anybody too, with what happened to them last year against FDU. I think the freedom they're going to play with, they haven't accomplished the ultimate goal, but they've gotten the monkey off their back to some sort of, so to speak, nationally. Everybody thought they were just a disaster painter, and they've choked. And I think them getting off the schneid last week against Tennessee and winning a tight game is going to be just as freeing to them as the streak that NC State's on. But you make a great point about NC State. They are playing with so much house money, it's not even funny. I mean, they are free flowing. You can tell they like each other. You know, you heard DJ Burns last week in the post game say, a month ago, we had guys coming late to team meetings. They weren't committed, all that stuff. So whatever that, I guess winning, as we all know, winning
great
cures a lot of ills.
It food tastes better. You sleep better. You get along better with all of that. And they have veteran players too. I mean, Ari, we can speak to that real quick here with Jason, that Burns is a graduate transfer, was at Winthrop, was the Big South Player of the Year. DJ Horn is a transfer. Middlebrooks, the big man, is a graduate transfer. And maybe it's that veteran leadership that has now started to blossom in March for NC State.
Well, I mean, all these teams, if you look at it, they're longer in the tooth. They have a lot of experience and college basketball experience. Obviously, the transfer portal has kind of changed some of the landscape, but as far as like experience and playing at this level, high level, all of the players, who's like, how many real true freshmen out there that I think Stefan Castle is really the probably it, right? That's probably one of the most
significant player other than him. I don't know that there really is one that's a freshman.
Right. And I mean, obviously, Purdue has got a lot of veterans on that team. And NC State, as you said, just a lot of minutes these guys have logged in, and it's showing. And you're starting to see, like you said, that winning is really a cure. I like what you said, Jason, as far as getting that monkey off their back. Matt Painter, so much criticism he had faced over just not being able to advance in the tournament too far in his career, and he's had some great teams. He also had some really bad luck. I mean, who would have known what had happened if Robbie Hummel didn't get hurt? I mean, Robbie Hummel was one of the probably best, was on the way to be one of the best college players ever. He was so good. People forget. And then he gets hurt. It was one of those situations.
A couple of times,
twice. Right. And it was unfortunate. That was really the shot. And then now you got Zach Edey, and then he commits to come back this coming year. And I think that made a lot of the difference for it. And I like what you said as far as like playing relaxed. That's important. Both teams in the first game, I think, are going to play. We say that, we think that, but then when the stadium is in there, it's a different environment that none of them have been there. But I do agree. I think NC State is playing with all the house money in the planet, and Purdue, I think, is also happy to be there. But I also think they're determined as well. And like you said, DJ Burns being on the court, we said before you got on, foul trouble. That's going to be a huge thing. And Zach Edey is a guy that draws a lot of fouls.
All right. So, again, that is game number one. And who's making shots? Again, Purdue, Jason, we talked about this, only made 3 3-pointers in the regional final win over Tennessee. A couple of them were late. They didn't make a bunch of threes. NC State has done a pretty good job defending the three, although Marquette and Duke missed a bunch of open ones in the Dallas Mavericks arena. Marquette missed like 30 3-pointers in the game, and a great number of them were open looks. Can Purdue take advantage of open looks? Kick it into Edey. He's double teamed. Kick it back out. They make some threes. That's something to watch for. What else should we watch for in UConn and Alabama? Same thing I asked Ari at the top of the show as we talk with Jason Powers here. He's at JPO Sports, by the way, on Twitter. The Powers on Sports podcast is fantastic, by the way. Ian Eagle of CBS is part of the Powers on Sports podcast. Check it out before Ian is on the call with Bill Raftery and Grant Hill coming up on CBS tonight. So I asked him at the top of the show, is UConn invincible here? That's the real question. Right. Can any of these teams knock these guys off? So I'll put it this way. For the second matchup, What's a sign or two, first half or as the game is going on, that Alabama has a great chance? What do you think?
I'm going to be interested to see what kind of pace Connecticut wants to play. Is Connecticut going to be willing to go up and down with them, or is Connecticut going to make a concerted effort to slow the pace down, make it a half-court game, and let their Stephon Castle. I heard Ari make a great point about Castle. He might be on. I don't know if it's going to be Estrada or probably not. Maybe Sears. I don't know. He may be on Sears. How will Alabama draw Clingan out of the lane? Can Grant Nelson hit a couple of early shots to draw him out? Can Stevenson maybe make a couple shots? He was the big player off the bench in the regional final. How does Alabama attack? We heard Brad Underwood. We're going to keep going after Clingan. Well, you can't. You better not do that. You better have and we know Alabama doesn't shoot mid-range shots. They either shoot layups or threes. So that's going to be the conundrum. If Clingan's in the middle, there's going to be a lot of contested shots on those layup attempts if you're Alabama.
Absolutely. And that's what I really think. I've watched enough, UConn over this year, and especially at key moments, Big East tournament and live at Barclays, to see that they do actually have a weakness in their defense, and it is at the mid-range. And no one that they faced is good at mid-range. I thought that you have to be able to hit your 3-point shots, but you don't really get that many open looks.
Right.
They're so good perimeter defensive line, and they have Clingan down in the middle to clean anything up if there is a mistake if you try to drive. Therefore, that mid-range is open, and you have to shoot it. And I don't know if Alabama has that.
Is Grant Nelson the big key in that regard, Jason Powers, while we break it down with you? Because Nelson can step out and make threes and draw Clingan out with him. If UConn's not going zone and they're going man, that'll draw Clingan away because that guy can make threes. Thought on that?
He's shown in the North Carolina game he can make threes. He's shown throughout the year he can make some threes. To me, the one guy Alabama has that is a mid-range guy is Estrada, the left-handed guy. He likes to shoot the little 10, 12-footers. Nate Oates doesn't like that he does it, but today may be the perfect game for him to be able to make 3 or 4 or 5 mid-range shots. Again, not all the way to the rim to keep Clingan occupied. But again, how does Alabama keep Clingan occupied? And what kind of pace does Connecticut want to – is Connecticut going to be comfortable if the game's in the high 70s, low 80s? I mean, that's a great question.
Yeah, I think they're comfortable no matter what. They make the adjustments, and we've seen that. We saw how
you were there in person at the Big East tournament. For audience that's just joining us live, Ari was there at the Big East tournament at the Garden for the UConn win. You were there for the first 2 weekends of the first 2 games of the weekend for the Barclays Center and the East Regional. What did you see in person?
Yeah.
What did you see in person? Reiterate that.
My thing is that they're a team that they can go either way, any pace. They can make the adjustments accordingly. And here's the amazing thing: they haven't shot the 3-point shot as well as you would think. With last year, they were really good.
They were rolling a year ago.
3-point
Jordan
shots.
Hawkins and those guys.
Yeah, they were just killing you off 3. This year, they're shooting poorly. They shot very poorly from 3 in a few games this year. I know one in the Barclays against.
They hit a lot of them early in Boston against San Diego State. But they did not really make anything in the second half, and they did not make very much. I think they were 3 of 13
they shot
against Illinois, something like that.
Very poorly against 3. So, they're able to. Yeah, go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
I was going to say, I can see Alabama playing some 2-3 zone today. A lot of zone. I could see them playing some zone and make them have to. That's the one. I think that's the one weakness I think you could say with Connecticut is the lack of consistent 3-point shooting.
Right, but they still are able to score. They score in transition, and that's the thing about 3-point shots. You have to make them, because what happens off 3-point shot misses? Usually long rebounds, and what happens with UConn? They get it out in transition really fast.
Sure they do.
And they all run on the release.
But here's one other factor with this Alabama team. And Jason, we've talked about this time and again. In full disclosure, Jason has been in Birmingham, Alabama for a lot of his adult life. Knows a lot. Go ahead and do the Roll Tide for Saturday. Do it. Go ahead. Do it.
For all my people. I'm not a Roll Tider. Roll Tide.
Right, there you go. One thing we know, even if they are missing in bunches with the threes, they're going to keep gunning. And they will have an opportunity. And we saw this in the second half of the Clemson regional final in Los Angeles. They had been missing some, and then all of a sudden, bam, 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 3 possessions in a row, they hit 3, 3, 3. They're a team that can get 10 points, 12 points in a hurry in a 3-minute segment or a 4-minute segment and get back in the game. And they're going to keep shooting. Even if they're missing, they're going to keep shooting and keep gunning the threes. That's the factor. Jason, we've got to roll in a moment or two. Final thoughts on semifinal Saturday of anything else we didn't cover, anything else you're excited to see in this atmosphere in the Arizona Cardinal State Farm Stadium coming up? What else?
I want to see Connecticut have to be in a game with 5 minutes to go.
Yes.
I want to see how they react because we saw Alabama. They played a tight one with Carolina, tight one with Clemson. I want to see Connecticut.
They were losing late to Grand Canyon, as we
Yes.
talked 2 weekends
Yep.
ago. Down 3 with
yep.
about 5 minutes left. Go ahead.
I want to see Connecticut in a 5 minutes to go in a 2-3 point game where they have to really execute with the press because they're going to have the pressure. Most of that building is going to be against Connecticut tonight. I know Connecticut's a big name, but people want to see the David versus Goliath upset. If that game's close with 5 minutes to go, that arena is going to be 75% anti-Connecticut. They want to see the Giant get knocked off. So I want to see how they react there. I want to see how does Dan Hurley react with the officiating. We know he's had some moments with the officials. You know, if something goes his way, Clean gets into foul trouble.
By the way, Nate Oates is no wallflower either with the refs. So who gets teed up? Have we already played a prop, by the way, for entertainment purposes on is either or both of the coaches going to get a technical foul this game? Danny Hurley, Nate Oates coming up. We'll see. Anything else? Are we ready to go?
I think Lance Jones and Fletcher Loyer are going to be the big players for the ancillary accessory players for Purdue today. I think you're getting a lot of attention on Edey. I think the kick out, Braden Smith is a good distributor. I think Lance Jones and Fletcher Loyer are two guys to keep an eye on shooting the threes. They make a couple of those threes, and I think DJ Burton's going to have all kind of problems with Zach Edey. I think
you like these stat nuggets. All right, NC State has been in the Final Four one other time. They won on semifinal Saturday. They won the championship game with Houston. The Purdue Boilermakers have been in the Final Four 2 other times, lost the semifinal 1980, won in the semifinal in 1969, but then John Wooden's UCLA beat them in the championship game. So somebody gets to go back to the championship game for the second time ever out of NC State and Purdue in program history. Somebody will be there on Monday night. Jason, great stuff. I always appreciate your time and your insight. We'll check in with you again on the Monday preview show as well. It's a date for Monday, 3 Eastern time, noon Pacific, depending on, your work duties, whatever else you got going on.
We will make it happen.
I will love to have you on that. Appreciate the time here. Great work. And let's see whatever happens here on semifinal Saturday. Jason Powers, thanks.
All right. Is he snoring too much? Make sure he doesn't snore too much.
No,
me.
Either one of us.
I know me. No, I chop the Everglades, man. Like I'm.
All right, have fun, boys. Have fun at the game.
There you go. There goes Jason Powers with us, hanging out. A final few moments as we do this live and get ready to head over to State Farm Stadium here in a little bit for the semifinals. I love Jason's insight again. He's at JPO Sports and the Powers on Sports podcast. Again, we won't hear very much of Ian Eagle calling the game with Bill Raftery, Grant Hill, Tracy Wolfson and company on CBS. But Ian Eagle is a guest on the Powers on Sports podcast with Jason and with Mike Grace on his podcast right now. All those previews that are out there. All right, so you and I can relate this. We were around each other and the Final Four, 2006 Indianapolis, and then 2007 in Atlanta. The Florida Gators went back-to-back. That's the last time that it's happened. 17 years ago. Give me your opinion. How is this UConn team similar and primed for this? Or maybe how are they a little different in your mind going for the repeat? What's your thought?
Well, it's similar because it has the same team on the front of the jersey and obviously the head coach. It's different because the roster is completely different than those Florida Gators, who was the same starting 5 that they had the previous year, and they all decided to come back to run it back again, which is really hard. So in this case, it's a different dynamic, a different energy. It's a different setting. You have a different team, a completely different team, not like it was with Florida, which was the same team. So that's what makes it different. What makes it the same is their pressures that they all know, the ones that were there last year, have to also understand and kind of project their experience at this point. Obviously, you have the experience with the coach, knowing what to expect. UConn had that interesting kind of snafu trying to get here. That I think is an extra chip. They're looking for chips to have on their shoulder. It seems like that's the latest chip. And you kind of need to have that. I think Florida had that chip on their shoulder to repeat. I think that the pressure is also for the chip to win the chip is on UConn's shoulders. They have a lot of pressure.
So Mark Wise, we keep referring to, he was on the radio call with the legendary Mick Hubert, the local and regional Florida Gator radio call of those back-to-back titles, and he brought this up earlier in the week that Florida team in both of those title years had close calls, games that could have gone either way. In the first year in 06, Corey Brewer won a game with a shot in the final seconds.
Georgetown.
Could have gone either way. And then he related that Florida was playing Purdue, I believe, in the Sweet 16, he said, in the 07 tournament. And Al Horford, one of their big men, one of their keys, had 4 fouls and took a charge in the final moments of the game that could have been foul number 5 had it gone against him. And what his point was, they came through close games in the back-to-back. UConn hasn't had to deal with that yet, and maybe they're not going to have to deal with it. I mean, a year ago at this time, it was Miami, unfortunately for you, in the way, and it wasn't close, really. And it was San Diego State in the title game, and it really wasn't close. So maybe they're going to get to the finish line again without one of those tight spots. But I guess that's really the question and the difference right now.
Yeah.
They haven't, UConn had a tight spot in these last 2 years.
They haven't had a tight spot. So we don't know how they will be in it. But like you said, we don't know if they are going to be in it. We haven't seen them in it yet, but maybe they're so good that they don't have to be in it.
What we know is we're going to be in it. We're going to be in it with 70,000 of our closest friends coming up at State Farm Stadium, not far from where we are here in Glendale, Arizona. Again, about 30 minutes outside of downtown Phoenix. They are primed. There are people pumping in here from every which direction. New England, Alabama, the Triangle, the Tobacco Road, where Raleigh is. Again, let us not forget NC State, an amazing story with 9 postseason wins. And you don't think they're going to love the fact that they walk into State Farm Stadium and look around and go, where's North Carolina? Where's Duke? We're here. They're not here at the Final Four for the Wolfpack. And then Purdue, again, has not been here since 1980. Is it their time? Are they in the title game Monday night? We're about to find all of this out. Again, whatever happens here, we're going to promote a way that after the game is over on the TuneIn channel, if you're hearing us on TuneIn, the College Basketball Coast to Coast channel, we will be on the air immediately after things are over, probably about 20, 30 minutes after game 2. You'll hear a full recap show that will stream all night and into Sunday on the TuneIn app, free to hear. Check out College Basketball Coast to Coast under the TuneIn service. Go under sports, go under college sports. Go to the live link for the TuneIn College Basketball Coast to Coast channel. Also in podcast form. If you get podcasts, go ahead, sign up, subscribe. Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. You'll get the recap when it's out. Saturday night late, Sunday morning. Then we will be back live. Ari, Tyler Jones, Matt Zimick, Deshaun Tate, T.C. Martin, cast of hundreds will be on our College Basketball Coast to Coast coverage, not only Sunday, 3 Eastern Time, but Monday, 3 Eastern Time on these social platforms. Also on TuneIn, live show, 3 Eastern Time, Sunday, Monday. This time tomorrow, we know who's in the title game.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to find out if it's UConn or Alabama. We're going to find out if it's NC State and Purdue. Do I sneak a prediction?
Yeah.
Out of what it's going to be?
I mean, my bracket, which is utterly destroyed, I had UConn and Purdue, and I'm going to stick with that till.
I had UConn and Duke, so I guess I got to stick chalk with Purdue. Mm-hmm. But it could be NC State. Again, what a story if they win a 10th postseason game as near a double-digit underdog again, an 11 seed. If that is what's about to happen coming up here tonight, we'll find out. We're about to find out with these 2 semifinal games. Again, thank you for watching on the College Basketball Coast to Coast platforms on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Also following along on Twitter. Finding us on Facebook, find the TuneIn channel. That's where the show streams as well, the audio version of the show. Did you have any fun here this afternoon previewing this? You ready to go find out who's in the title game?
Oh, yeah.
There's Ari Russell. I'm merely TJ Rives. Thanks to Matt Zimick helping us preview, as well as Jason Powers on this show. We thank you for watching. We thank you for listening. Much more on the way. Live Sunday, 3 Eastern Time on the platforms. Live Monday, 3 Eastern Time. Talking up the 2024 men's Final Four. It's all part of College Basketball Coast to Coast.